Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're super excited to be together again for another Talent Table webinar. My name is Rebecca Warren, and I'm going to be your host for this event. A couple of housekeeping things we're going to start with, and then we will dive right in. So if you look to the bottom of your screen, you'll see some widgets that you can use during the event. There's also further related reading in the resources section. You can ask us questions through the Q&A. So if we get an opportunity, we may answer it live. Otherwise, we will potentially take that away and get back to you later. We also have our talent table coming up for the next month, which is looking at elevating talent with guests from Coca-Cola, Euro Pacific Partners, and the Josh Bersin Company. So not to take away from the excitement of this event, but you can already register for the event coming up next month. So today we are super excited to be talking about how AI can help your talent practices. And we have a couple of fantastic guests to help us talk about that. So AI is a topic that seems to be everywhere and in a whole lot of different flavors and understanding of what it is and what it isn't. So we're going to be looking at AI in this webinar from a talent management lens. Now, with businesses focused on internal mobility and employees seeking career pathing, HR functions are realizing how valuable AI can be to bridge the gap and unlock that talent potential. But AI can be so much more, and also so much more confusing, on how to use it, when, how often. It's rapidly, though, becoming a game changer in enhancing employee engagement, surfacing potential talent, digital succession planning, and building a talent intelligence roadmap for many companies. And so we have two amazing leaders who are here to tell us more about that. Welcome, Isabel and Adrian. We're so excited to have you with us. So if you could, we will, yeah, absolutely. So if you could, we'll start with Adrian. If you could introduce yourself, your name, your organization, your role, and then we have the get to know you guest question, which I will throw out. If you had to choose one mode of transportation, would you choose a plane, a train, or a cruise ship? I've given you such fabulous options. All right, Adrian, we'll flip it to you to go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm Adrian. I work for Vodafone, who does none of the three things you mentioned in terms of transportation. What we do though, we launched the first mobile network in 1985 in the UK, and ever since the vision, Vodafone vision, has been to improve people's life for connectivity. And what that's meant is that following this purpose, which stands true today, we've grown and we moved from being a traditional telco into a next generation connectivity and digital services provider. So that means that we have operations or partnerships in 22 countries across Europe and Africa. And also we partner with mobile networks in other 43 countries outside our footprint. So in terms of scale, about 98,000 employees across these countries, and they speak about 9 different languages. So scale and scope, and certainly that brings opportunities as well as challenges and reflection points for deploying AI. My specific roles is I support these operations, specifically from a people technology perspective. That specifically means I have a team, and with my colleagues, we do things. Number one, we are responsible for the governance and prioritization of, so we lead the design with humans in the centers across the technology for those solutions that support our people. So that's the remit of my team. I would travel. Rebecca, you want me to say how I will travel? Is that the question, or we pass to Isabella? I think
yes,
I have a connection problem.
Please. Yeah, go ahead and tell me. Would you pick that cruise ship, the train, or the plane?
It has to be train, because I can't get to my partners by plane. than in a smaller city which doesn't have an airport. So there's a strong pragmatic criteria there to use train.
Well, and you have options, right? You have a lot of train options there, very different in the US depending on where you're located.
We have a lot of train options and very environmental friendly as well.
I love it. I love it. All right, Isabel, over to you.
I just continue. Yeah. So I'm Isabel. I'm a senior manager at Deloitte Consulting in Germany, based in Germany. And actually, Deloitte, what do we do? So we are doing, as a professional services firm, we are advising typically on all topics related to trust and or technology. And actually, my team is located where we combine these two things mainly. So I'm completely specialized on the topic of digital ethics and AI governance. So how do we create and implement trust in AI and in new technologies? That's basically what I'm doing. So my whole team just transitioned to Deloitte 1.5 years ago. And previous to that, we also did consulting and advisory work on that topic, but also a whole lot of research. So a lot in AI in healthcare, AI in HR, so everything people related. And how do we actually put humans in the center of our work, and what needs to be guidelines and guardrails so that we can actually balance innovation and control some sort. And my favorite kind of transportation, that's also the train. So I'm based in Germany. So the past weeks we had a lot of footballs or soccer players on the train as well. So that was a kind of, so I'm a huge fan for sports. So that was kind of nice. And also next week I'm going by train from Germany to Paris for the Olympics. So especially within Europe, that's a nice way to have like seamless transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, but the cruise ship, y'all get to eat like whatever you want and activities are planned for you. You sure you don't want to change your answers?
No? So the environmental issue with cruise ships.
I agree.
Okay. We could go down a whole different pathway, couldn't we, if we started talking about that? Fair. Okay, we're going to leave your answers with the train. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm jealous that you're getting a chance to do the whole Olympics adventure. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
all right.
Really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully we'll be able to hear some of your stories after the Olympics have ended. So exciting stuff. Okay, so let's jump in and let's talk about AI. So let's start talking about first about what it is and what it isn't, right? There's a lot of things that people think they know. Maybe they're using it in certain ways, little bits and pieces. There's the everyday AI that we use, right? Search or on social media. ChatGPT has become such a cool little thing now. AI for HR, maybe some talent insights or using some kind of AI in the background. So Isabel, I'd love to send this to you first. Talk to me a little bit about how AI is already embedded in how we work, right? Like it's really not a brand new thing that just showed up last week. Talk to me a little bit more about what that looks like in terms of embedded in our space already.
Yeah. So actually the integration of AI in our daily lives and work has been kind of seamless, right? So, maybe first we got like a lot of awareness in our, let's say, more personal lives, yeah, being it like AI algorithms powering Facebook's news feeds, for example, or Google search results, or let's say email spam filters that are run by AI. But in enterprises and in business, let's say we distinguish, or the past years, there was always AI, but more in very specific use cases and in very specialized areas. And what we see now, of course, with the upcoming of ChatGPT, but also more, the advancements of AI, is that we see in our common working processes, also in the non-tech environment, we see a lot more AI use cases coming up, being it embedded in the software that is already there, yeah, so in whatever vendor you choose, or in very specialized solutions that coming on top of that. And it's, of course, a lot of that is for automation gains, improving productivity, better decision making also, and particularly in HR. So AI is being used to analyze employee performance data, optimize schedules, improve the whole recruitment process, deliver personalized learnings and development programs. So there are a lot of opportunities out there also for the HR departments.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I think what you said is exactly right. It's embedded in ways that we don't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adrian, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, in terms of from a industry perspective, the business insight piece, I think everybody, because you use AI in our naturally, people, leaders, managers will ask the question: how can we expedite our strategy? So, for example, for us in Vodafone, our refresh strategy is about customer simplicity and growth. So under that, obviously, there's a lot happening. And so the natural question is to say, how do you make sure we get the right people in the right roles quite quickly to serve the customers? How do you make sure that we leverage AI wherever possible and ethical to do so, to simplify the way we work, how we organize ourselves? How do we might be using AI as a way to make a step change in terms of behavior and leadership? So might we be using, for example, conversational AI as a way for people to practice part of their development, different type of conversation? So there are multiple aspects that come into place, and we've been using AI in Vodafone for a couple of years now with great results. So we've experimented with, like Isabel said, talent acquisition has been a key factor.
Okay, sorry, I think I might have frozen a bit.
You have, yeah, a little bit. But I think, can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so like Isabella said, for all companies, talent acquisition is an area of focus. And in that space, the role, how can we democratize talent so that our recruiters have reached to the full spectrum
Sorry, can y'all
of
hear me?
candidate in our database? Yes, you can. We can see you, but we can hear you, Rebecca. And also, we looked at personalized learning.
Okay,
and also
perfect.
how can we help
So I'm going to send that next question back on over to Adrian. I apologize. My internet is being a little sketchy. So Adrian, you had talked about that, using it strategically, and I think that's really important. So how do you stay informed on when to use the right AI solution to help you make those accurate decisions?
It's a very big question. I think we start with any technology from what are you trying to achieve. And so I think there is a lot of knowledge around what AI is, what isn't. There's a lot of courses out there. Even ChatGPT can tell us what AI is if we want to try and interrogate that. For us, like with previous technology, we started from what is it that you want to achieve. So what is it that you want to focus on in a way that adds value? So then we started to look at what adds value, and then value versus complexity and risk matrix. So we went through a rigorous process of questioning what we want to do. What is it from what we want to do that can be enabled and make sense in terms of scope, and ethically we can do it. And then we looked at a way to do that. And sometimes the answer was uncomfortable in the sense that you may need to bring together multiple partners, multiple vendors who never worked before together to actually create that one platform. So that was our quest. We asked big questions, so we got big answers back, and then you had to look at it and say, now how we deal with it. And we're very lucky we found through a long process of searching for the right use cases, but also for the right partners to get to value proposition that works for them and work for us to create a unified platform, for example, for skills. And that's critical. So I think short answer in summary to your question is, number one, define what is it that you want to do. Then be prepared to deal with the answer, it might be a big answer, but then find the right partners and be able to bring them together to actually collaborate and find the right value proposition for everybody, for us and for the partners.
Yeah, and what a great call out to say it might be uncomfortable, but we have to look at all of the options and consider all of the pieces before we actually make that decision. And Isabel, I think you probably can help us answer that the idea of how can I trust, right? Like the bias, accuracy issues, all of those things. Like there's always that little question in the back of your head, like, is this real? Is this right? How do we trust the output?
So it's actually, we have a term, even in academics, we have a term for it. It's called the creepiness factor of AI. Yeah. So every time something is new, it kind of seems creepy. And, how can I trust AI is also a question. How can I trust the alternative? So how is it actually being done? Some kind of process is it being done today? And compared to that, can we trust AI 100%? Probably not. Yeah, and we shouldn't. No matter what role you have in for a specific use case, but probably we will never, trust 100% like any process. So, the thing is always, what is the alternative? And we do have a lot of new governance measures that will come up with the EU AI Act, at least for Europe. Yeah, that so we have standardized requirements for AI quality and AI governance that will be implemented in the long run. So AI still being from a standardization and quality perspective kind of a new topic. But, for highly regulated areas and industries, we already came up with standard solutions, and we only have to regulate what really needs to be regulated. So, HR is very, has a lot of impact on people's development. So that's, and we have very personalized data that is being processed. So, of course, it's also in the focus. But so everything that has a lot of impact on, human lives and human developments, of course, and human health is in the center of some sort of regulation and standardization, not only in Europe, but around the world. Also in the US and in other markets, there are standards popping up. So that is being worked on. And I think, we see numbers also in studies going up for trust towards AI because also of regulation. Yeah, not that I say that I'm the biggest fan of any regulation, but it's part of the deal that we get some quality standards also in the development processes there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I love what you said about, but can I trust the alternative? If we don't use this, then what? So what a great tie-in. So do the uncomfortable things, ask the hard questions, question the alternative if you don't do that. And then I think that's a great call out about the governance, right? Everybody is starting to weigh in on the right usage, making sure that there are some guardrails and some controls. So I think there's a lot of great things that are going to continue to come to help us feel more comfortable around the accuracy and the ability to eliminate or reduce bias through using AI.
Maybe one additional point, also it's about awareness. Yeah. So AI is new to most, people that try to use AI in the end. So that's why the creepiness factor comes up. Yeah. Experts, tech experts, they don't usually have that feeling because they know what they are working with. So, clear guidelines, clear communication. What's the strategy behind AI? Why are we using it? What are the opportunities? How will probably my role change? When AI comes, and what are the positive side effects of that, but also what are the risks? That is like key also to gain that trust also.
I think there's
Yeah,
one
for
point
sure.
that I'd like to add as well, Rebecca, to this,
Yeah.
and probably it comes under the broader umbrella of trust, but it's also about choosing the purpose you're deploying AI for, right? So just because the AI can do something, it doesn't mean it should do that.
Should.
So
Right.
I think choosing the part of the process or the process you're deploying AI very, very well so that it works well in the context you want it to work well. I think that's a fundamental part before you even start to ask the rest of questions. So yeah, we will give an example, a recent example from what we do now, which is from a people perspective. So yes, absolutely. If you are Gen AI and AI together, you can use feedback data to send learning recommendation because you're talking about use cases and learning recommendation. Great. But the next question is, should you be doing that? Is your input data strong enough? We're still battling with this. So we're kind of doing analysis on the data. Is the data specific enough? Is it good enough? And what experience do you want to create? So you might be doing the right thing even, but is it the right experience, the ultimate right outcome that you have? So once you send learning recommendation to people, you're just going to send another 10 learning recommendations. But in the prioritization of how people should be spending their time, they have another 10 from colleagues, another 10 from some other source. What's really relevant to them? How do we help people to make the most of the little time they have or they want to allocate for learning or for development or finding careers? So it's very, very relevant. So I guess the point of trust for me is also about the relevance of where you deploy AI first and what experience do you want to offer. And once you define that, kind of then the questions around trust become narrower and narrower and more controllable, I guess.
Yeah, what a good call out. Can AI do it? And should AI do it? Right? Like, where is that line? I love that you said that. And so, tagging along that line, Adrian, as we think about the strategy, and you had talked about making sure that you know what outcomes you're looking for and then back into your solutions. How do you think about aligning with the overall business? I know in previous organizations that I've worked in, folks have said like, oh, well, this department is using this technology and this department is doing this and this department is doing that. And sometimes they're have two separate contracts with the exact same company because they're kind of doing the same thing. Like, how do you align across the organization to make sure that you're not either working at cross purposes or maybe potentially missing out on some alignment? How do you get IT, finance, HR, everybody aligned to make sure that you're putting in that holistic solution rather than just everybody kind of doing their own thing?
I guess I'm spending most of my time on that point, Rebecca. So I think for me, our learning is start as early as possible. So share idea early on has been our experience, but also, so I guess the practical, I'll give you a little bit of stats on our journey. So we kind of found that the answer was AI by the fact that you're coming out of the cloud transformation and you're asking the question, saying, well, are we now done in terms of the experience that we want to create, how we want to enable, empower our people, and therefore accelerate our strategy, business strategy, not just strategy. HR strategy is there to accelerate the business strategy. So when we start asking these questions, engaging with business colleagues, so managers, employees, we found out and we shaped about 260, close to 300 user stories, which are all about things we have to evolve. How now we build on the foundation of trust and the foundation of data we created. And then when we looked at this, you say, well, what's the answer? Why can't we do it with what we have? And kind of the answer was, well, let's experiment with AI. And then we landed to the point where I said earlier, which is the AI is the answer, but is it one vendor? Is it multiple vendors? So then we had to create partnerships across vendors and create the right journeys. And in all of this process, it wasn't an HR process. It was an IT and finance and business and HR together that me and some of my colleagues led. And then we built a foundation for AI. As we started looking at Gen AI and also continue to experiment with AI, we also have company-wide steer calls where I sit, and we learn from each other. And sometimes we have healthy conversations as to why you're doing that. So you may have, legal might want to be doing a chatbot because they use Gen AI to supply chain might be doing the same. Customer-facing function might be doing the same. So you have multiple environments where you have to recognize that everybody is experiencing, we're all learning about it. So there's a place for experimentation, which will happen potentially in silos. But once you create the forums of conversation, the steer calls and the operational groups on AI, which is not HR sits there, but it's across the business, you start to find and ask the question, how do you go from experiential learning and experimenting and learning about that technology as well, the context of the technology, data, controls, all of these things, and then scale up at company level, which is a different question. So I think phase-wise, you kind of recognize, each function will ask their own questions because they are specific to the function. So they identify the scope and the place where AI is best to support and enable and complement humans. And then you're going to say, okay, so if this is what you're thinking, how do we scale it up enterprise level? And therefore, we simplify even more and optimize. But throughout, it's a continuous peer review, put it this way, continuous conversation, multiple levels, and some very solid constructive debates to say what's the right thing to do. So there isn't all of the use cases on Gen AI and AI go for this on privacy, security, and other business parts of the business, and we're having this conversation, and there's visibility across everything we do. That's how we do it. Doesn't mean we're doing right. And I want to learn from other companies how they do it. So, but it's our answer for now, right? It's a continuous improvement quest. So.
But I can really strengthen that because I see, and when I talk also in different projects to our clients, and we see that it's a much more interdisciplinary effort to get to scale AI in the organization than it was for previous, let's say, software or technology transformations. So it typically starts, as you said, the exploration starts use case by use case, right? And how do you actually enable certain functions also to think in the direction of use cases? What is possible with AI? Yeah, that is the first challenge. Yeah, but then you kind of have the backlog, and then how do you actually combine and get everyone together, because there are not that many people who are actually specialized in AI. So how do you get them together for knowledge sharing, for experience sharing, and then get to really get to AI deployment and really get the value out of the experimentation phase.
Yeah, that's great. Adrian, I took a note where you really said start early and socialize. I think that's such a great point, is to get as many people involved and understand it early on so that you don't feel like you're continuing to have to backtrack or explain or justify, right? Pull people in early, proactively, as opposed to springing it on them in a way that maybe they are not as open to it.
Yes.
So let me ask a question, and Isabel, I think this probably goes to you, especially in the work that you do. It came in from one of our attendees. So from your experiences relating to deploying AI, what's relevant for smaller and more agile organizations? And I think I have a couple of thoughts on that, but Isabel, I'd love to hear you talk about what does that mean for smaller companies who maybe could move a little more quickly?
Yeah. Actually, I have a background in working in startups. So I come also very personally from very agile and small organizations. And sometimes I miss the speed of decision making. Yeah. So I think that's a huge advantage. Yeah. So no very long processes. But still, it's, what are what is your foundation, actually, your AI foundation? What, do you actually just want to enhance processes, or is your business model kind of based and relies on AI software? Yeah. So if you just want to use it for your own processes and to enhance the processes, then it's probably a topic of pricing. What is the best vendor? How can you negotiate prices and licenses and stuff, because that's also a kind of a challenge sometimes. But if your business model really is based on AI, then is how can you actually get the most out of it? How do you build your foundation up for scaling? Yeah. So, kind of the basics also, documentation, validation, testing, and stuff like that. How is that set up? And how can you actually also give that to the market and make it an advantage? Yeah. Because there is a lot of uncertainty around AI. So if you can really pick out your USPs in terms of, how did you develop it? Do you really tackle the problem, your client's problems with it? Then you have a big advantage to the bigger organizations because you are just faster. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's, I want to talk a little bit about communication. So we've talked about building trust. We've talked about internally socializing, asking the questions about what are you trying to achieve? What do you want to accomplish? What are your goals, right? You don't just want to say, let me just throw in this new cool tool just because it's new and cool, right? So if we talk about communication, and this is a two-part question. So Adrian, I'll throw this to you first. How do you recommend the transformation piece be communicated to your organization? How do you communicate it to the business so folks don't get scared by it? And then the other part of the question is, do you also share with your clients, your customers, what you're doing? Like, should they know the ways that you're using AI to make you more efficient as an organization? Or is that something that you feel like should be kind of kept underneath the surface? Does that make sense?
It does. There are multiple questions into one. Let me try and answer.
I know, I'm sorry. You might be talking for the next 20 minutes.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Look, I think communication-wise, clearly, and there are studies. I think KPMG have done some great studies on this. I'm sure Deloitte have as well, but I haven't looked at it, which speaks something about me, not about the research on Deloitte. But look, I think it's clear from a lot of research and from interaction with colleagues, empirical evidence that people are a little bit wary about AI. I think having some solid principles in place that you can communicate internally what AI is about and what it's not. So it's about augmenting human intelligence, it's about replacing it. I think it's important piece to carry through in the communication internally. And equally, again, I know I'm repeating myself on this, but focus on what AI does and why AI is needed, as opposed to, we're doing it because it's cool, because it's AI. Because people don't want that, but they don't want any technology just because it's there. They want to see what is it it's going to do for us, how it's going to make our life better. So, as an example, is one of the impossible questions in HR, but also that supports any company strategy is how do you understand the skills you have and the skills you want to develop? Now, that is extremely difficult to do without support and enablement from AI. And look, in HR, we've been trying to do that for 20 years now. We talk about competencies and multiple other things. So deploying AI where actually you're trying to address a problem that really is a problem, and people will nod their heads when they told them what you want trying to do. That becomes quite easy because there's a clear partnership between humans and machine, so to speak. So it's not a problem, right? And then also I think it's important to create trust, and trust through everything that Isabella has already mentioned. And I think it's having transparency in the layer of protection and partnering well with the vendors who they have their own tests and follow industry level regulation and controls like EU Act or New York Act in the States is extremely important. And being able to really work with vendors who can provide the technology and have the ability to explain the prediction that AI has. So it's not a black box as such, but it's actually something you can have a human-to-human conversation about. I think these are very important. And then people embrace it. I think there are other studies who show that people have an appetite to learn about this technology more than ever before. And I think also the opportunity here is different from all the other technologies revolutionary going from Excel to on-prem technology, from on-prem to cloud. Now we add AI, now we add Gen AI on top of AI. The difference here is that in reality, all the other technology transformation we had was kind of done by a group of people, a core group of people for the rest of the people. We implemented big enterprise, we implemented big technology. Now there's a chance to actually listen to people and say, hey, I think a compiler can help me here do my job better. So crowdsourcing ideas and creating a community spirit around it, it just makes your communication when you implement even easier and better. So it's a different way of doing things, I think, this time around for this level of transformation. Your last question, so I think I've answered 2 or 3 questions you had before.
You're doing great.
The last one around, should customers know? I think depends what's relevant to them. But if you deploy a technology that supports customers, one of the important principles with AI is to signal and be transparent when a human enters a space where it's managed by AI. So you never trick a customer or a colleague, for that matter, anybody, into thinking that they get an answer from a human being, but actually they have it from a machine. And being able to provide the source of information is also critical. So I think transparency, explainability, and getting it right in terms of where you deploy AI and why. These are the 3 things I think are fundamental. And then the communication will be easy.
And it's not that AI typically does an automated decision, but rather it's a decision support. So it enhances the information that you have and speeds up, your the time that you would rather spend on, let's say, research or whatever, and that you would check for. And I like what you said, because we have that in our internal AI tools as well, that we have the source and a link to the exact page in some source document that we can refer to. So my role is not that I trust fully the AI output, but rather that I say, okay, I can double check it quick because I get it like a summary, yeah. But if there are formal requirements, then of course I still have the responsibility that I say, okay, is this information correct? But it's much quicker because I get directly directed to the exact abstract where the information is put from, and that helps. And also, what we know from communication research is actually the more human the explanation is, so the more human the interaction and the explanation, the communication is, the more it creates trust. So if you just put like a small disclaimer, oh, AI is used here in that capacity because of that and that, so it's more like a legal compliance thing, then, it's okay, it's better than nothing, at least when an AI incident happens, because we see these are the ones that come in the media. Of course, a lot of it is around bias in HR when it comes into the media, so disclaimers are better than nothing. But when you really have like that personal conversation, or through video, or through maybe avatars, also the more human the interaction, the more it clicks, the more it stays, and the more trust it creates, actually.
Yeah, great point to say AI is being used in some form or fashion, right? Like, we are using technology. You don't have to go into all the details, but at least that disclaimer, I think that's great. And Adrian, something that just really was a light bulb for me that you said, which was great, is all of the other transformations that have happened with technology have been more static, right? They've been like, hey, we're going to implement this new thing. And now we're moving to a dynamic implementation of something that we don't really have control over, right? Like, because it's continuing, it's growing, it's learning. The way AI works is so different from like creating an Excel spreadsheet, right? That is static. You know that if you add cell A and B, you're going to get C. But AI is a little bit less formulaic. So that dynamic idea of what's coming in is a very different transformation that we're seeing, that it hasn't really been seen ever, right? I mean, I think that was just really a light bulb for me. So I appreciate that context. So there's a question that came in here about using AI to make recruitment decisions or analyze performance data. So I will leave this open to either one of you if there's a point of view that you have. The question was, how are you leveraging AI to make recruitment decisions or analyze performance data? We could also open that up to say, should you? But I'll leave that open for either one of you to tackle on using AI to make recruitment decisions or analyze performance data.
I mean, we are using AI for recruitment, but not to make recruitment decisions. So that's important. In fact, for anything to do with people decisions, and the EU Act also tells us that the humans have to be in the loop. So, but I think the opportunities presented by the AI in the recruitment space is to think about it through the lens of a recruiter, right? So you're going to get a job, and you want to fill in the job, and you're going to go in and search the database. Now, search will be as good as it is with your vendor, but by all intents and purposes, it will be limited in many ways. Your data might be quite right. You might have migrated the data from another ATS or whatever. So what AI really does is help. So imagine I have a big pool of data. It helps to provide more informed information to recruiters. To say, here is now I helped you to do an impossible task. You would never go through over 1 million of records that somebody would have any point in time, like a large company would have any point in time in the database of candidates. And so what you do have as a recruiter, when you have AI in the system, is an ability for somebody to help you to mine all of the data and say, hey, based on the information provided by the candidates and based on their preferences of privacy and how here is what you may want to consider. And you could still go and look for all the different screens you have, right? But it's an information point. It's a co-pilot for you to give you help and really help you or us as an organization to democratize talent. I like to talk about it because really it's about reaching the group of people you might not actually reach otherwise. If search is as perfect in any system, Google wouldn't exist at all, but we know it exists and makes a lot of money. So we know search is not great. And so adding AI on that, it just helps you get better visibility to people, right? Also, it's a good tool for that as well. So in many ways, our experience has been by working with AI, and actually specifically with Eightfold in DA. We had fantastic feedback from candidates. We had, we increased our speed, double the speed to hire of the right candidates in the roles, and generally overall fantastic experience. But importantly, humans are always in the loop. So recruiter makes a decision with the hiring managers, with the panel who interviews, not AI. Yeah. Performance data is very sensitive and it's very, very important. For what purpose do you want to use it, and who needs to look at what, and what are you trying to achieve? And I think that is still taking shape for most companies in terms of the rationale for using AI on performance data. I think that I haven't seen a company yet that if there is a company, I would love to understand how they do it. We are not using that for performance, and I think potentially I can see a future for it, but it needs to be defined very, very well. In the end, whatever decision is being made, it will be made by humans rather than AI.
Yeah, I also have two examples actually. So in recruiting, but not recruiting decisions, but rather, preparing. That's also the point. It doesn't take any decision, but more, supporting the whole recruiting process, basically. It's in the interview process. So we have a whole GenAI platform, and there we have like a pre-configured GenAI tool. So I don't have to prompt anymore myself, but there's like an recruiting interview use case or tool that I can use, and I can say, okay, who am I? What position am I hiring or interviewing? What kind of interview is it? What am I looking for? So is it more team fit? Is it the functional expertise, the technical expertise? And then I get like I get like the whole the whole guiding framework for the interview and pre-configured questions, etc. And also it's, you know, and it's very, very based on the scientific methodology out of how do you best interview people to get the most out of it. So that actually helps. And you see, it's just, you know, everyone takes interviews, but maybe some of us, you know, do it regularly, some of us less regular. And, you know, what do I need to consider? And what questions do I need to ask? What is my actual role? How does it come together? So that is where our AI tool helps instantly, basically, because it just, you know, quickens up the process. And the second is, you know, skills. AI is something that, you know, all of our clients now much more also deploy and work on AI. So our skill profiles also need to be much more, in a sense, AI based. So what, you know, how do our job roles and skills look now? And what do we need in the future? And, you know, maybe we have people that are in different roles, but, you know, it's kind of similar. And the skill set is kind of similar, but, you know, you wouldn't just imagine that could be, you know, with like just little upskilling, that would be AI relevant. So how do you actually detect these people with the right skills that, you know, you can then put more in, for example, more in the data science and AI field, but are maybe working in some other department right now in some other area of expertise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And that actually ties into one of the questions I wanted to make sure that we covered. And we've talked a little bit about this in terms of compliance and governance and making sure that we've got the right guardrails and controls in place. But especially with the EU on AI regulation, that's the forefront of everybody's mind, right? What does that look like? So what do HR leaders and the broader business need to be thinking about with that in place when they're creating their future talent strategies? Any thoughts on those new guardrails that are in place?
So maybe a quick overview on the EU AI Act. So actually it's a risk-based approach. So you have a risk pyramid, yeah. On top you have like the prohibited AI use cases, yeah, that we can probably leave out for most of the businesses. Then we have the high-risk use cases. Let's say for the corporate world, HR is a huge topic there. So everything in recruiting, everything in contracting, you know, performance monitoring and stuff like that is very relevant. And of course, everything, you know, that is, let's say, product related, safety components in medical devices, etc. also, but, you know, here, typically HR. Then chatbots is, let's say, the limited risk. So that's one step beneath limited risk, everything AI related, where you have an interaction, where you have, let's say, an AI human interaction. Chatbots are the primary example there. And, you know, you have for the high risk use cases, you have obligations that you need to fulfill in terms of AI quality and governance. So you have organizational measures that you have to put in place. For example, we said it several times already that the human is in the loop. We said an AI doesn't take automated decisions, probably, and it's not allowed to do according to the AI Act. So that's basically the thing that is regulated there, because it could take automated decisions if we wanted it to, yeah. But that we have a human in the loop, that is something that the EU AI Act actually regulates there. But also technical quality measures and transparency obligations that come with it, yeah. And there, of course, it's some effort that you need to prepare to, yeah.
Look, I think for me, what I would add to what we already discussed, I think, to be honest, I think we kind of, the whole discussion was how you would really apply EU Act into implementing AI. But just to add what Isabel said, I think apart from the compliance part, I think as you prepare and start an AI journey, there are a few things probably is good to think about. One is how do you create quick and early partnerships with the experts in the company? So the security, the cybersecurity, the privacy, people who are experts into understanding specifically how the legislation applies to the specific use case you want to have. Now that can be quite uncomfortable because you have to be open to talk about things that are very early on in the idea. It's really as a collaboration, is about being open to challenges and iterating your use case and your ideas. So I think that's an important one, starting early on and being open-minded about it. So you may get challenges back on your use case because you haven't thought it through. I think if you see those interactions and also the regulation as an enabler, which I think most people do, certainly in HR, but I think most business leaders overall, regardless of the nature of the company, small company, large company, they do. I think doing that first time. And I think the other part I would say is don't underestimate the importance of culture before you start with AI. So what I mean by that, whilst AI will evolve, what technology will be there, all of this stuff, culture and data will make or break it, in my view. And so getting the data right, aligned to your use cases, so making sure that the input is right. What is AI in the end, right? It's a piece of technology that is able to infer something from the input and provide predictions or generate content. Really, I'm oversimplifying, but if you think it in that way, you gotta say, I have to prepare my input very, very well, i.e. the use case, the data, and people who can help me to think it through, so that the output is what I expect it to be. And then the output has to then align to what we said earlier, explainability in a human way. And so data, culture, and early engagement and your governance processes are fundamental. And specifically when I talk about culture, it's not a fluffy word, but it's specifically about collaborating well, making sure that people share ideas and they share when they find a good use case for a copilot, as opposed to thinking, oh, but if I'm sharing this, maybe I lose my job because I show that the copilot can do my job. So I think it's very important to get that right. A culture of experimenting, learning fast, collaborating, and staying open-minded about use cases. I think that and data makes or breaks the AI journey.
Fabulous. That is such good points in there. I have pages of notes from all of the salient things that you both have shared. We're coming towards the end of our time. I have 6 more questions, which I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask you just one as we wrap up. I know Adrian's like, phew, I'm not ready for all of those. The last question that I want to roll out here, and really appreciate everyone else adding questions from the audience. Thank you for throwing those out there. Those have been helpful as we've gone through this conversation here. So my last question, and we'll throw this to Isabel first, and then to Adrian, is what's the one piece of advice you would give to HR leaders when they're thinking about rolling out AI technology?
So the one piece of advice, also adding to Adrian's last point, is really put the people first. Yeah. So just rolling out AI doesn't mean that it, really drives all the value that you have hoped for. Yeah. So really making expectations clear and really, spark that excitement in the end. Yeah. So that really is. And building the culture of, really using AI in a meaningful way. Yeah. And then, I think it's not so much about the fear of losing the job, but really of the excitement. How can I do it even better? And, and what's the next step then of technology that we can see out there? And that's the exciting part also.
Yeah.
In a way, but I think as a frame that I would like to offer, which is to say, so there are 2 answers to this. One is a technology piece, which is designed for humans, accept that humans and technology will collaborate in the future. And so therefore get the culture right in terms of collaborating, learning fast, experimenting. So there's something about culture, about design. But there's a third element that cuts across all areas of the business, which is about training people in the company to be AI ready. And so making sure that you've got your curriculum right for people to access a different level they might be, and potentially different level of expertise for different type of roles, depends on the kind of roles they may have. But overall, being able to communicate and offer to people a reskilling strategy to say, hey, my role might be different, or there be different opportunities generated by the fact that you adopt AI. So how do I get ready for that? How do I get ready for the jobs of the future? I think that still sits into the portfolio of HR overall, which we kind of wear two hats in this scenario. So technology, design, culture, and partner well, and data. And the training piece is super important. Get ready for the future, upskill, reskill for the future, but also helping people to understand the technology here and now and how we can interact with it. They don't have to become prompt engineers, but the basics of how we can interact, I think everybody needs to know that.
Yeah. So this has been fabulous. So I have 4 words or things to take away from what you've shared. So the things that have impacted me and the things that I have noted is focus on trust, right? Build trust, focus on transparency, be open-minded. And the other side of that, Adrian, is what you talked about, is it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? So be open-minded and then keep that human connection. Those are those takeaways that I've learned from you all, which have been fascinating. So appreciate the time, appreciate the conversation. Please stay connected to us if you have questions for any of us. We are available on LinkedIn. I would also encourage you to join our next talent table coming up in August, where we're going to be talking about elevating talent with a couple of folks from Coca-Cola and the Josh Bersin Company. So Isabel, Adrian, thank you so much. Round of applause for all of your insights, and the conversation here has been fabulous. So thank you so much. Any last thoughts that you want to throw out there in the last 30 seconds?
No, I'm looking forward to learning as well from the people on the call how they do it. So we spoke a lot, but we try to learn from other people as well. Thank you for having us.
I love it. I love it. All right. Enjoy the rest of your morning, evening, afternoon, the rest of your day, all. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.